Hi Anna, how's it going?
Hi, I'm doing great. And how are you?
I'm good, I'm good. Welcome to the Joys of Solo Travel podcast show. I'm really excited to have you on board. I know you have just a lot of incredible travel experiences. And so why don't you introduce yourself a little bit to the audience? What really stemmed your passion for traveling? When did you start to get, into traveling? How that really came about?
Hi. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. Um, so about my traveling experiences, I've, to be honest, I think I've always really felt the urge to travel growing up. My uncle has traveled the whole world, and he was always kind of my inspiration in that. So I think that he really was had a huge influence on me growing up. And then I don't know, I always knew that when there will come an opportunity, I will start and travel. And of course, first there were mostly these small vacations with family that I really enjoyed, but it was really different than, just going out and seeing the world. And there came a point in my life where I just decided to quit my job. I also just got out of a pretty long relationship, and I thought, all right, so nothing's really holding me back, and I'm not going to wait for anybody else to join me. I'm just gonna go and live my dreams, which has mostly been traveling.
Wow. So it seems like your uncle kind of planted those roots when you were younger. But is it because did he take you with him on his travels where you kind of just traveled and came back and told a lot of stories? Like how did your uncle really influence you and your passion for traveling?
Well, I never actually went with him, or maybe once. Yeah, I once went with him, but it hasn't really been like that. It's just that I grew up hearing a lot of stories from my grandma about my uncle traveling.
Mm.
And that has always been two-sided because I heard it from my grandma's perspective. Of course, missing him being so far away, but at the same time, for me, it was always, beautiful to hear, oh my God, now he's been to Japan, he's in Australia, he's all over the places. And I don't know, it just really started a spark in me that might have already been there to feel like, oh wow, that's also something that I would really like to do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like that spark really like blossomed when like I guess at that time in your life, as you mentioned, right? You felt like it was the time for you to embark on your own journey abroad. And so like what did you feel when you were coming to that decision, right? Because did you feel, on your first trip, did you feel a lot of these butterflies? Were you scared? Did you overplan? Like, what were the emotions before you took that first trip abroad?
So my first trip was a short weekend trip to Greece. That was my first solo trip, and it was kind of everything that you just mentioned. It was a bit overwhelming, a little bit of fear, very exciting, definitely a lot of butterflies. But the one thing that I didn't have, and I still don't have, is the over planning. I'm not a big planner, so I usually just go with as minimum planning as I can, and I just go and see where it takes me.
Yeah. Yeah, we always say that no plan is the best plan.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
uh, I mean, you fit the perfect solo traveler or backpacking kind of mentality, right? In a sense that I traveled the exact same way, like just a
Mm,
one-way ticket, really not knowing anything about the place, and really just trusting the universe and letting your energy
mm,
attract the right people, the right memories, adventures along the way. I guess then let me take you to kind of that big Southeast Asia solo trip because I know it was such an integral part of your life as well as your travel journey. So just tell me about that, right? You booked a one-way ticket, I assume?
yeah, so first on my mind was Bali and Indonesia in general. I've been dreaming about an island for as long as I can remember. I was like, okay, there will be a point in my life when I will just go to an island and just explore myself, to be honest. And as I got out of my relationship, I started feeling like, maybe it's time now to go and, you know, just get to know myself better. And I didn't feel like there's really anything holding me back. I'm, when if not now? So yeah, I booked a ticket before Christmas. I also talked to one of my friends. She was thinking about joining me, but she didn't. And that was the last push when I felt like, you know what? I just have to do this for myself and by myself. I also had a couple of two friends going to Southeast Asia also to travel. And they also were kind of an inspiration for me, but we went completely different ways. So we just met up once there, but they were also a good inspiration for me to be like, okay, let's just go.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And like Southeast Asia, it's like a very common geographical part of the world for backpacking, like we're digital nomads, we're entrepreneurs that work abroad and so on. Like it's I don't know what it is, whether it's, obviously it's gorgeous place, people are great, food is great, there's a lot to do. It's, the cost of living is generally cheaper than other places in the world. And so I guess when you started your journey in Bali, how did you feel? Like when you landed in Bali, how did you feel? Like it's a very iconic place for a lot of people to kind of start their beginning their travel there. So how did you
Mm.
feel when you arrived?
Well, first of all, I didn't really read much into Bali or places that I'm going to, that I was going to go to. So I didn't have a lot of expectations. Bali is quite touristic to the rest of Southeast Asia, but still, I just felt like there's something there for me. I think it's also quite spiritual center for people to go to. So I think that was also kind of what made me feel like, okay, I'm in the right place now. And I felt safe. I felt like, okay, I can turn back anytime. So if something goes wrong, I can just leave, but let's just explore as much as I can.
Wow. But were you staying in hostels the whole time, or did you mix it up with a host family, with Airbnb? Like how was your itinerary look like there?
So I started out in hostels for the first 1 week, I believe. I was in a more touristic place in Canggu. That was also my first real hostel experience.
Mm.
I made a lot of friends, well, a lot of acquaintances and a couple of real friends. We had a big group quite instantly. I opened up pretty easily, so that was not a problem for me. I stayed there for the first week, and then on the second week, I took a motorbike and went up to Sidaman, and I stayed there for, I believe, another week, which is quite a remote place in Bali, and I loved it. There was really not a lot of things to really do there, but I didn't go there for activities. I didn't go there to meet people. I went there to just calm down, be by myself, sit with my emotions, write, read, do some yoga. And yeah, I believe, yeah, it was February. So the weather was quite, not difficult, but there was a lot of rain. And I really enjoyed it. There were a lot of nights when the rainstorm came and the walls were really thin, so all you could hear is really heavy rain, and that was just beautiful. I just felt like, okay, this is really washing away a lot of the things that I want to leave behind that I don't really um, feel like is me anymore. Um, so yeah.
Wow. I'm in I'm picturing that setting that you kind of just laid out, and it feels very like peaceful and like serene and
Mm.
like I guess a moment where, and I guess, during that week, the moments where you can just be with yourself, be with nature, be with the universe and just, get to know yourself internally more, right? But what is it like? I heard a lot about, and you mentioned it, like Bali being a very spiritual place. Like, what is it? And of course, it depends on where in Bali as well. So for you, when you were up in the mountains there, and I know you're very like in tune with nature, almost as one, right? So what is it
Mm.
about that place or that area that really made you feel so like in tune with nature, so in tune with yourself, and be able to be peaceful inside?
That's a tricky question. I think that maybe there people live a lot more simple lives, and simplicity really takes away a lot of stress that we just, I believe, we put on ourselves. Like the more you have, the more pressure you have. And there's a lot of, like, there, it felt really authentic. I met my hosts. They were happy. They were smiling. They were very welcoming. And they just wanted to show some of their own culture to me without, without feeling like they're pushing me to, this is how it should be. I think that people live a lot more simple, but also somehow that comes with being in tune with nature, growing flowers just to I don't know, just to cherish that it's coming from nature. And then I don't know, there are these beautiful energies there that you somehow can't really explain, but just waking up to the sound of birds and then watching the sunset, all of these very simple everyday things that we sometimes take for granted when we don't know how long it lasts.
Yeah. I totally agree. You know what? I felt very similarly when I was in Vietnam, and I saw like more in the local areas where people with rice fields and so on, and like there's almost more beauty in the simplicity, and they almost have more with having less in a sense, right? Like a lot of times we're continuously chasing the next thing, and life is going by so fast in a blink of an eye, as you're
Mm.
always head down chasing the next step. Whereas actually maybe the most important is to take a step back and just enjoy every moment in the day, every and be present, right?
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Yeah,
Wow.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, because you get such different experiences in Bali, right? There's like, I mean, there's the crazy traffic. Obviously, there's the motorbikes. There's, beautiful, beautiful places to see, whether it's like in the mountains, beaches, and so on. So, like, what really stood out to you about Bali? Is it the nature? Is it the people? Is it the digital nomads? Like the culture? Like, what is it that really stood out to you about Bali?
Mm. Well, first of all, I think that even though there are obviously a lot of tourists, if you just open up to the experience of getting to know the culture and the locals and how they live, I think that's a very unique experience. It can be beautiful. And also the nature, like if you go from one point to the other in Bali, even though it's just you may just go a couple of kilometers, um, you can experience a lot of different smells, views, landscapes, and I don't know, it's just very magical for me. And for example, here in Cinnamon, my hosts were actually really welcoming. And as I mentioned in the first days, I just wanted to stay in my bungalow. There was nobody else renting, so it was just me, and the hosts lived a couple of streets away. But every day the man came by asking me how I was feeling, what I was doing, and I felt absolutely safe. And he was always telling me like, maybe you should go and see the village a bit more. Let me take you. Let me show you Cinnamon. And in the beginning, I was like, I really just came here to read and do nothing. And eventually I said, you know what? If this man is so accommodating and they really want to show me something, then I'm just gonna go. And he took me to, I don't know the name right now, but it was the biggest temple complex in Indonesia. It has 55 temples overall, and he took me there, and he waited in the car for me and just told me to go and take a guide and just be there for a couple of hours. And I took a guide. We walked up to the highest part of the temple, and there was a priest there, and he showed me the practices that you do. And I did an offering, and he kind of blessed me, and I felt like so pure, so amazing. Like it was just great. I can't even explain with words what exactly happened there, but I felt like okay, there's a lot of old patterns that I'm leaving here now, and I'm just going to go as me as I can.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And like, did you feel those bad auras or bad energies leaving you during, the blessings by the priest or?
Yeah, I like there's not one single point where I could say, okay, this is when it happened. But my whole stay in Cinnamon already felt like, okay, this is a release. This is a rebirth. Like there are so many things happening. And then with that ceremony with the priest, it all came together and was like, okay, let's just leave it behind. Yeah.
But then a question that comes to mind for me is like you had this really incredible experience in Cinnamon, right? But then when you leave Cinnamon and you go back to a more busier place or a city and so on, like is it hard for you to adapt back to the other kind of noise and people and that kind of lifestyle? How was the adaptation period when you left?
Mhm. I wouldn't say it was hard for me. Um, I think that it's definitely a challenge to keep a peaceful mind in a busy environment. But that's also kind of the point, because as far as you can be peaceful when nothing's happening around you, you're not really peaceful, right? You have to be peaceful inside for not letting everything that's outside affect you in a way that it's going to really have a harmful effect on you. So I think it wasn't necessarily hard to adapt back. It was definitely challenging, but it didn't feel hard.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And I guess when you were in Sidham, you also attended a cremation ceremony as well, right?
Yes. So this host and his wife, they actually invited me to his friend's father's cremation ceremony, who had just passed away, I believe, a week before that. And then they dressed me up in this traditional clothing, and we all went by his car to the family who was mourning. And it was very different from European traditions, of course, as you would expect. So we stayed up all night, and the women were cooking, the men were gambling and playing games in order to keep away the bad spirits from entering the body of the deceased. So the body was still there and decorated, and the women were cooking, the men were playing, and everyone was chatting the whole night. And what was really beautiful as well was that they also offered me food. And they usually, my host told me that with these families, if they are very rich, then they will um, offer food to every guest. And if they are a bit more poor, then only the family gets food. And there were a lot of people there, and they included me. So they actually offered me some food as well. And I felt like this is just such, I felt so honored. And even though everyone tells you to be careful with the food in Southeast Asia, and of course I knew that, there I just felt like I feel safe eating this very interesting looking black rice pudding that I got, and nothing bad happens. I'm not telling anyone that they should just go for it and eat whatever they get, but there somehow it just felt right. So yeah.
Wow, so they really kind of like accepted you into their own. And I assume you were the only foreigner that was
Mm.
there.
Yeah, I was the only foreigner, and I believe I was also the only foreigner that most of them have ever seen in their entire lives. So they were taking pictures with me. One of the girls came there and sang me an English song that she learned at school. Yeah, it was just a very unique experience that I want to, cherish with me forever. Yeah, it was really amazing.
Yeah, I think it's like moments like this and like memories like this that will stay with you forever, you know? And
Mm.
like that really like stays deeply within you. So it's I mean it's such a beautiful description that you gave as well. So but I also know that in Bali you went into the jungle like randomly with somebody that you met, right? So this is a completely different kind of experience. You know?
Yeah, so that was um, in Ubud. Actually, I stayed at a hostel, and my cousin came to visit me, and she told us that she had seen a snake during the day somewhere, and she was a bit frightened. And this one guy and me, we overheard her saying that, and we were both like, "Oh my God, where? That's so exciting!" And this guy knew a little bit about snakes and reptiles, and I'm just a very adventurous, crazy person. And he said, "You know what? Why don't we go and look for some snakes and spiders and see if we can find something?" And I was like, "Let's do it." When are we going? And he said, "Well, snakes usually it's easier to find them at night." So we waited for the night, and then the two of us went down to the jungle and looking for snakes. And we found very amazing animals, like a huge frog, um, a tokay gecko. We found some kind of lizard, and we found pit viper, which I later found out that it was poisonous. I mean, I found out from him, but yeah, it was still amazing.
Wow. Well, I mean, describe that to me. Like, how did you just? I mean, the jungle was just right there. You had the hostel, you had the jungle, and you just. I mean, what kind of jungle is this? Like, and like, is it huge? Like, how did that come about? Like,
So this hostel was a bit more remote from the center, and there behind the hostel, you could actually walk down on a path to the jungle. And that's where I would usually sit in the evenings. There were so many birds around and frog sounds, just so many sounds. And of course, this beautiful fresh air. So that's usually where I was sitting, meditating or doing yoga in the morning. And there is a path that leads you down to the jungle. So that's where we went, and that's where we found all these animals. Even a firefly came by, which was such a magical moment.
wow. Okay, so you're always on the outside of the jungle, and then that night you decided to venture into the jungle.
Yeah.
But then I guess, because did you ever get lost? Like in the during that adventure, Did you feel a
Mm,
bit worried at one point because it's the middle of the night, right? I'm assuming you probably just had flashlights. Um, like, did you get worried that you were going to lose the way back, or that there could actually be some other animals there that could be dangerous to you and him?
mm. We were not worried. I have a really good sense of orientation. So I go out to the forest by my, of course, it's different in Europe, but I just about the orientation, I go out all the time and I could walk for hours and still find my way back. So that was never really anything to worry about. And we kind of knew that there were not probably not many predator animals around. So, and I think our heads were just rushed by adrenaline and just by like the ecstasy of the whole adventure. So
Yeah.
it was not, there was not a moment in me where I was like, okay, this is extremely dangerous, even though in a way it was. But now looking back at it, I'm glad that we did it.
Oh, that's great. You're probably one of those. You should be one of those people that put the blue markers on the trees. You know, when people go hiking, so they can follow it every every couple hundred meters. Just because you're so good at
Maybe.
orientation. But was that experience what made you almost get deported in the middle of the night, or was it another experience?
That was a different experience. So I was in Bali for 2 months already, and my visa expired. And I went to Singapore for a visa run, but I just walked through the automatic gates, so I didn't get a stamp in Singapore. And I just went there for the day, right? So I stayed at the airport and then flew back to Bali so I could enter again. Um, and as I got back to the airport in Bali, they were asking me quite usual and normal questions like, what are you doing here? Is this your first time visiting Bali? How long are you going to stay for? And so I told them, no, I've been here before. And the man behind the counter looked at me pretty suspiciously and he said, yeah, I can see that you've been here, but I mean, you've been here this morning. So what are you doing here again? And I said, "Oh, I just really, really like Bali, and I'm just here for touristic reasons. I'm just interested in the culture." And then he asked me more and more questions, like, "Do you have family here? Are you planning on staying in Bali?" And I was like, "No, I'm leaving soon again." Um, and then he made a call, and a couple of men arrived from the deportation office, the immigration office. And then they took me to an office and started questioning me. And I started lying because I knew that I was going to stay there for at least 2 more months. But you have to prove that you're leaving within 1 month before you can get your new visa. So I told him, yeah, I'm going to Malaysia in about a month. And I was in the middle of the night in this office with this Indonesian man, no idea how I'm gonna find my way out of this. Am I gonna go to jail? Am I getting deported? Am I even going to be able to contact my family if something happens? Like it was a very scary situation. But I just kept smiling and I was like, inside, I was like, okay, I've done a lot of stupid things and I've been in quite a few sketchy situations, but this is like kind of where I might start crying, but I didn't. I was like, yeah, you gotta keep your cool. And they let me go. So it all turned out fine, but I was walking on the line of bad things happening.
Yeah, no, definitely it could have like escalated from there, right? But yeah, it's very like I found like a little thing a lot of people do is like buy like a cheap like you said, like if you're going to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, have like a just like a little flight there just to show, and then maybe like if you could
Mm.
cancel it closer to that date, then you can stay a bit longer. Right? So but I guess unfortunately this is one of many airport stories because I know that you have like a lot of wild airport stories that you've encountered, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like at this point, I already made up my mind. I have a curse. And it also kind of entertains me because other than this, nothing really dangerous have has ever happened. But I have a list of things that have happened to me on airports where I was like, what is happening? So there was the one in Riyadh where eventually I also went out and explored the city a bit. So I usually try to turn these situations into something positive, something that afterwards I can be like, okay, even though this happened, it turned out being a good opportunity for something. So that was in Riyadh. Then once when I was flying from Manila to Thailand, I believe. Um, I was just ready to get on the plane where there's these big screens, and I looked at it and I saw my name on the screen, and I was like, huh, that's weird. Why would they have all the passengers' names on the screen? And then it said the following passengers should go back to the entrance right now. And I was like, oh my God, what is happening? Like, am I going to miss my flight? Um, did I do something wrong? Did I put something in my pocket that I shouldn't have, like in my luggage? And apparently I just forgot like maybe my laptop in the bag that I wanted to check in, and I was not supposed to. So that was all. And I got back to my plane on time, but that was like dumb. Um, but eventually, these small things, these small stupid stories, which end up not turning really badly, teach me to be a bit more organized, to look out for my stuff, like there's always something that you can learn from these experiences, I believe. Um, yeah, there was one time when I was with a friend of mine and we were flying from Laos to Vietnam, and she organized most of the things. She was the one planning because I mean she already did it and I just don't like it, so why bother? And then when I filled out my visa form to Vietnam, I enter as an entry point. I added Ho Chi Minh City, which was actually our exit point. So we had the flights from Laos to um where was it? From Laos to Hanoi, which was exactly the other side of the country. And I had Ho Chi Minh City on my visa. So we were ready to go get our planes. And on the airport, they looked at me and they were like, sorry, miss, but you're not going to be able to get this plane because your visa says that you're entering Vietnam in Ho Chi Minh City. And I said, I really didn't know that it was so important to put the right entry point on the visa. Um, is there any way I can still get on this plane? Because we already booked the flights. We had an organized tour through the Haojiang loop in a couple of days from then. So I asked them like, is there anything that you can do? And usually when these airport situations happen to me, I already kind of start laughing because I'm like, what is it now? Um, and they said, no, we are very sorry. We already made a couple of phone calls, and it's not about us. it's not about Laos, but in Vietnam they will not let you go through the gates. So we just can't let you get on the plane. And they were actually super helpful. I got pretty stressed, and they found out that there is a way that I can get to Hanoi within 2 days, I believe. So I had to buy a last minute flight from Laos to back to Thailand to Bangkok. Then spend the night in Bangkok, fly to Ho Chi Minh City so that I would enter Vietnam at Ho Chi Minh City, and then from Ho Chi Minh, I had to take another flight to Hanoi. Um, which of course cost me a lot of money. I lost the ticket, like I didn't get back the money from the ticket that I already had bought from Laos to Hanoi. Um, it was just crazy. Like I had to go to the um, automat to get money off because I could only pay them in cash, of course. I had no idea if it was even going to work, like if they are scamming me or is this really going to work out in the end. I had to find a hostel for one night to stay in Bangkok. And we had to say goodbye with my friend without me knowing if I was gonna make it to Hanoi. So that was really stressful.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was that important actually, because I also did that e-visa, like electronic visa process for Vietnam, and I had the same as I had the same as you. I put Ho Chi Minh as my entry point, and then I exited from Hanoi. But I didn't do the reverse,
Yeah.
so it was fine. But I guess if I did, then I wouldn't have been able to go in either.
Mhm.
But you mentioned Hajong Loop, so I actually want to just touch on that because it's a really famous, I guess journey a lot of people take. Did you do that? Was it motorcycle? Did you go with a guide like yourself? I can't imagine driving that yourself, but
No, I did it, but I took an easy rider. So I took a guide to ride me. Um, and it was beautiful. I loved it. Um, it was one of the best things that I liked about Vietnam. We took the 4 day trip. I got there on time. Uh, but just to touch back on the other topic quickly, because that chaos didn't actually end there. Um, in Bangkok, I met a couple of people. We went out for the night at the hostel, and then next morning I had a really, really early flight. And I got into the taxi and I put in the Uber or something. It wasn't Uber, I think it was Gojek, something like that. And I asked my taxi driver, like, hey, this is my my plane ticket. Is this the right airport? He was like, yes, sure. We went to the airport. I got there on time. Um, I asked someone, hey, I can't find my flight on the screen. Can you help me? And this man looked at me and said, you're at the wrong airport, miss. It's on the other side of Bangkok. So again, it continued. I was like, at this point, I was not having it. I was not believing it. I ran out, got into the first taxi I found, and I gave him all the cash that I had. I told him, please, sir, get to this airport as fast as possible because I need to catch my flight, and I did. And as I got to Hanoi, we just my friend was waiting there for me, and then we took from Hanoi to Ha Giang quite a long night bus, like a sleeper bus, which was very chaotic. And then we took the 4 day trip to on the Ha Giang Loop. Yeah.
wow. But you know what? Now I think of it, I've also had my share of airport stories as well, from missed flights to just like seeing the date wrong, like booking something for the year after. not realizing, like thinking it's for this year, like let's say next month, but the year was next year. So like making
Wow.
mistakes like that, just not seeing,
Yeah.
let's say 2023 versus 2024, like those things where going to the wrong terminal or going to the
Mm.
wrong airport, like you said, it's like, so I guess now it's really made me pay attention. I think triple check when I'm booking a ticket or, so. But
Yeah.
but I do want to touch on that Haijiang Loop thing because I like can you describe it a little bit? Like, you're going around that mountain going up. It was a 4 days,
Mm.
so I assume you probably slept along the way. So tell me about that experience.
Yeah. So we started with a hostel tour, and then you can decide to either take a driver, like hire a driver, or you can drive yourself. Now I have driven motorbikes before, but I did not feel comfortable doing this by myself. I was told that it's quite dangerous, and there were so many parts on the route where it's it's really, I would only advise it to very, like, if you have a lot of experiment with driving a motorbike, then go for it. Otherwise, it was perfectly comfortable for me to just sit in the back. Took a lot of videos. I'm I just love taking pictures and videos to look back at them. Just laying on the couch now in Hungary and being like, okay, what did I do at this time last year? And just looking back at it. So then you start going from one place to the other. You can either choose to do a 3-day tour or a 4-day tour. And if anybody wants to do it, I would really recommend the 4-day tour because the fourth day for me was the most adventurous one. And then you just make stops on the way for eating, um, and for looking at like amazing, beautiful views. Like I can't even tell you when you look at all of that nature with the mountains, it's breathtaking. It's really great. But our first day started off with so much fog that we barely could see anything. And then we started at this viewpoints, and you couldn't even see, like you could see a meter or two in front of you, but that was it. So
Uh,
at first I was thinking like, is it going to be like this the whole time? Because then it's still nice to sit in the back, but we're not gonna see anything. But on the second day, the air cleared out, and yeah, you see a lot of animals and villagers, like the local kids running to the motorbikes, screaming, saying hi, and you can, yeah, they are just so nice and kind.
wow. Wow, that's I mean it is an iconic kind of experience to do, right? When you're in Vietnam. As you said, it's one of your favorite experiences in Vietnam that you had.
Mm.
I know you traveled all around Southeast Asia, so I mean, you mentioned Laos, you touched on Thailand, so I guess what other country that did you really enjoy in Southeast Asia?
Well, to be honest, it's all so different. That I can't just choose one or two and I'd be like, okay, this is the one that I enjoyed most because there's such big diversity there that just when you go from one place to the other, it can be quite a different culture. Yeah, so I've only been to Malaysia for a week, I believe. Um, and you've lived there, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I lived near KLCC, like near the Petronas Towers.
Mm.
I assume you probably visited near there.
I did, yeah, I did. But yeah, Malaysia for me was a bit too rushed. Like I was there for a really short time. Um, so I didn't really feel the culture as much. I think I would want to give Malaysia another chance.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very underrated, I must say. And like it's a big country too. So like there's Penang
Mm,
up north, there's Malacca, which used to be the Dutch used to be there. There's like beautiful coastal places that's like quieter than like the Thai islands, for example.
mm,
So I really liked it. I really had a great time. Hence why I lived there for a while. So
yeah,
where else did you
I
stay?
can
Also,
imagine.
did you stay a long time in Thailand or Laos or not really as well?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, well, I also, this one friend who was in Laos and Thailand with me, we traveled to most of the countries then together. And yeah, in Thailand, we also stayed, well, I'm not even sure, but quite a few weeks, I believe. Um, and we didn't go to the islands, um, but we went to an elephant sanctuary. Like there, I think that you really need to do your research and make sure that it's an ethical one, like no elephant riding, because the back of the elephant is just not structured for that. But the one that we visited was again an experience for a lifetime. Feeding the animals with the food that we made them, with local grown bananas and mm, herbs, and then just being around these wise beings who are huge, and like looking in their eyes and trusting them, knowing that they will not hurt you, even though they could, like they could just smash you if they wanted to. Yeah, that was something for sure.
Yeah, a lot of people like really emphasize on like like an ethical elephant sanctuary, right? And then when
Mhm.
you find the right one, they treat the animals well, then you have an experience like that's just incredible, right? Did you like 'cause I've seen a lot of these videos. I never did one myself actually yet. Like you got to feed them? Did you also get to bathe with them? Like what is the like that experience like?
Yeah, so we first went on a walk with them, which was already crazy. Like I can send you a video afterwards of walking in a river with a baby elephant, and then the mom just running along next to me completely freely. And so they live in this quite big territory. So we went for a walk with them, then we fed them, and afterwards they took a mud bath, and you could join them. So of course I did. And it was just great. Yeah.
Wow, incredible. Well, that's I mean, what an incredible, I mean, Southeast Asia experience, right? I guess overall, how long were you in Southeast Asia for during this entire adventure?
I believe 6 or 7 months. Yeah, less than 7 months, a bit less. Yeah.
Interesting. And I know you mentioned just Riyadh just earlier, so I just want to quickly touch on that before I bring us to the Netherlands. What was your experience of the city of Riyadh, right? Because obviously you're in Southeast Asia, 6, 7 months. Riyadh, it's very different in the Middle East. So, like, what was your impressions? How did you know? Did you like it? How was it? I know you were probably there for a very short period of time for
Hmm.
that transfer, right? So,
Yeah, so Riyadh, I absolutely didn't plan on visiting because I didn't even know that I was going to have to pay the visa, and I was assuming that I was not going to be allowed outside of the airport. And of course, before that, I really didn't have much experience of traveling solo, um, only in like Europe. But that's it. And then everyone that I talked to was telling me, okay, if you're in Riyadh, don't go out. But they were not talking from experience. They were just, worried about me. And of course, I didn't have any signal on the phone if I went out. So I wasn't sure, should I not? I felt a little bit intimidated, um, already on the airport, even though I covered up as much as I could. Um, but of course, people could still tell that I'm a foreigner. Um, so I wasn't sure if I should or should not go out. And I met a couple, German couple, and I saw that they kind of were in the same situation of just transferring, but then paying for the visa. Like nobody actually knew about that. So everyone was a bit shocked. And I saw them going outside of the airport. I was just out there soaking in some sun. And I asked them if they wanted to go out and explore Riyadh a little bit. And we did. We found oh, what's it called in English? Like the church, kind of, the Muslim church.
Oh, mosque.
Yes, yeah, thank you. So we found the mosque, beautiful one. And then we went inside. There were two men there who were also really helpful. They showed us everything, but he didn't come with us because there was a different entrance for the women and a different one for men, which was very interesting for me. Um, but yeah, the people that we actually had an interaction with were kind and helpful, and then they gave us bottle of water each for free. So eventually, I think that mostly what I experienced even there was, of course, people are curious, staring at you. Like maybe I wouldn't have felt comfortable going there all by myself or spending a lot of time there by myself as a woman. But like this, it was great because it was a nice experience in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of mosques, it just brought back a memory that when I was in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, I actually lived near a mosque.
Mm,
And every morning they would play the adhan, and I would wake up to that like early in the morning around like 6 a.m. Uh, but what's interesting is that like the call to prayer is longer than it was, let's say, in Morocco, where it's a lot shorter, but they recite parts of the Quran in Malaysia, and then they do the
mm,
adhan. And so there are some really beautiful mosques I've been to, like we're seen around the world, like the one in Casablanca, Morocco is beautiful. The one in Abu Dhabi is gorgeous,
mm,
pure, beautiful white, mosque. And there's so many, whether it's like Jordan, whether it's Bahrain, Kuwait, it's all like very unique, but it's a fantastic like place, for people to
yeah,
go in and worship, right? So I'm glad you had a good time in Riyadh as well. It's like it's developing very quickly. There's a lot of innovation happening there at the
yeah.
moment. So uh, I guess then to kind of wrap things up, I wanted to just take you to the Netherlands where you wanted to stay just a few weeks, but you actually ended up staying much longer than that. Uh, what brought you there, and what made you stay so long?
Yeah. So I went there to visit a friend that I met in Bali, and we instantly like clicked. It was like I don't know, so many things um were telling us like, okay, we're meant to be friends. Um, and she lives in the Netherlands in Den Haag, which is like an hour from Amsterdam. And I was supposed to go to Barcelona, to Spain, or at least that was in my mind, after visiting a friend in Strasbourg in France, whom I also met in Indonesia. And something in me was just like, I'm not sure if I want to go to Barcelona right now. Something is telling me to go to the Netherlands and visit this friend. So I texted her and I asked her, like, how do you feel of me visiting you now? Because she has already told me, like, if I ever feel like going there, I'm more than welcome. Um, and she looked at her calendar and said, perfect, she can be free. I went there to visit her, not knowing how long I was going to stay. But in the beginning, it wasn't even planned to be longer than a weekend. And something was just right in me. It was like, okay, I haven't felt like settling down in a while and quite some time, but now I somehow want to come back and see how I like actually living here, not just traveling, but actually living. So that I remember the moment when we were sitting on the pier, on the beach with my friend, and I saw a dog playing on the beach very happily. Um, and I was talking to my friend. Somehow, this idea of me moving there just made sense. So I told her I really like it here. I think that I want to start looking for an apartment and see how it goes from there. And she really liked the idea. She helped me with so much, like her and her boyfriend. I'm so grateful because they helped me with a lot of things and they also made me feel really welcome. So first I flew home to Hungary. I told my friends and my family, guys, I think I'm moving to the Netherlands. Uh, and and I went back and I just got home 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
So I've stayed there for 7 months.
Wow. I mean, it is a fantastic country, the Netherlands. I'm very
Mm.
fond of my experiences there as well. So not surprised that you stayed that long. Great. Well, Anna,
Yeah,
thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast. I mean, what a
thank
wonderful
you.
set of experiences, and thank you for just sharing all that with the audience. And I'm sure they're going to get a lot from it. So yeah, thank you so much, and hope to have you on next time.
Thank you too, David. It was really fun talking with you.